Hello, and welcome back to me. How are you all doing today, guys? Right, so there's a lot of talk at the moment of a new Forbidden Unlimited list coming out in the near future, and I've got some ideas as to what I'd like to see on the list, and also some ideas of what I think is more realistic to see on the list. So I've got a few different things here, which I'm going to go over in a moment. I've got a section for things that could come off the list, a section for limited, semi-limited, and forbidden completely. I've got some sort of honourable mentions as well, and we'll sort of go over those as we go. So first off, I want to cover what I will say. I don't want to just give an entire list prediction, because there's so many different variables to that, and there's so many different things that could have come off and could go back on. I feel like I'll be here forever thinking about that. So what I'd rather do is just give one good, what I would say to be a reasonable, realistic prediction per section, and a couple of honourable mentions here and there. So, first off, the first thing that I think we could see coming back off the list, probably to 1, as that seems to be the way that things go when coming off the list. Go to 1, then 2, then 3 if they are, they need to be. First thing I could see coming off the list is Fairy Tale Snow. Now, before we get panicky, think about it. Is it really going to do anything? Kit Colossus is gone, right? Fairy Tale Snow is simply not that big of a deal at the moment, and here's why I think it genuinely has a very good chance of coming off the list at the moment. Now, obviously, we have the sort of first thing comes to mind: new Fairy Tale support. Yeah, you know what I mean? Fairy Tale Snow is pretty much the only really good card of the Fairy Tale monsters we had already. Arguably, I think Sleeper and Rella are pretty good situationally, but Snow's just a very good card. It's been an issue in certain decks in the past. I don't really see it being that big of a problem anymore. It's a big commitment for a deck that doesn't mill half of its contents in its combo, So I can see this coming back. On top of that, the new world premiere that we had, I think it's Genia of the Ring, I think it's called, the one that has 1850 stats on it. Level 4 spellcaster, 1850 stats. The first part of the effect is that you can target a monster on the field and then summon the card from your hand, and then that monster becomes a spellcaster. Which obviously just works really well with Fairy Tale strategy as is already. It's a nice extender, great for going second. It's just wonderful. It's like part of 2-card combos, 1.5 card combos for get yourself started. It's a good card. The other part of its effect is an effect that doesn't really come up, in my testing at least, because I've been testing the deck a lot. It doesn't really come up unless you factor in Snow. And the second part of the effect is, if it's banished for the effect of a spellcaster monster, you can return it to your hand. I can't really think of anything else in that deck that banishes generic spellcaster stuff. Just generically banishes a card or a monster or something like that. Snow does that. The other things want to banish specifically Fairy Tale stuff. So that has me thinking we're going to get Snow back, just to help with, push this new, the new Fairy Tale cards forward. Having said that, with, some testing, I don't know that it needs Snow as such. I actually think the deck is quite competent as is. By no means like a tier 1, tier 0 threat, but it's chugging along. It does stuff. It works well with Magistus. It's going to get stronger when the Endymion support comes out in the next, I think, Battles of Legends stuff. So yeah, I actually think it's a perfectly fine deck as is, but with the addition of Snow, going to be in much better standings. So I think that Snow has a very good chance of coming off the list, purely because of the new support we've had. And again, Genie of the Ring, the potential of that card is only fully unlocked if you factor in Snow. Without Snow, it's not a bad card, works lovely in the strategy. It's just not, it's not quite there. Next up for the semi-limited, I actually have an honorable mention for this. I think a fun one they could do, which I think would be actually very interesting, they could semi-limit Fallen of Albaz. Now, obviously, the card itself is not worthy of semi-limit. However, the card that it shares a name with, Fallen of the White Dragon, I would argue potentially is. Especially seeing as people generally run it at 2 already, because they want to run one of this and then 2 of Fall of the White Dragon. Now, semi-limiting Fallen of Albaz would actually lead to some quite interesting deck building choices. So, would you want to run one of each? To be able to run one of the original and one of the new one of Wildbaz, because you want to have that toolbox option of both? Or would you want to just run 2 Wildbaz, which is already happening? So realistically what happens if you semi-limit Fallen of Albaz? All that happens is either the 2 of Wildbats that everyone's currently running goes down to 1, or they just cut this one. So I actually think that this is a remarkably safe semi-limit, considering it actually doesn't change that much in deck building. And also, I think, would be interesting. I don't know that it would happen. I don't think there's a high chance of it, hence why it's only an honourable mention. But I think it could happen. I think it would be an interesting take. But the one that I think is much more likely to be semi-limited is the Fallen the Virtuous. Now, I have a bit of a contentious bit of a opinions on this card, because a lot of people love this card and say that if this is where generic disruption is in the format and everyone uses it and it's reasonable and people agree it's okay, then it's a good format. I largely agree with that. My issue with this card is, I think self-recurring non-engine is kind of a problem. I know that's not what everyone would say, but it's a very small interaction, just, removes one face-up card on the field, and it's the fact that it's self-recurring, I think, is very strong. The issue with it comes very much more when you play a bigger branded package, because you can then search your other stuff with it. You can send off your things that will search other things at the end of your turn. You can do a lot more with this in branded. And I think it's worthy of a semi-limit, if only because of the sheer power of this card in branded and the splashability and how good it is in everything else. I think it's worthy of a semi-limit. I wouldn't be mad if they limited this card, truthfully. I personally don't love this card. I think the self-recurring interruption is a bit too strong. That's just my opinion personally. And the other effects are essentially a quick effect monster reborn. It's like it's in the quick effect monster reborn, to me, is insane, because you can dodge called by. You know what I mean? Like the quick effect monster reborn in the branded thing is absolutely insane. And the reason I would actually mind this to be limited is because it is so searchable in a pure branded deck. So you don't really need this at more than 1 in pure branded. It's nice to have, don't get me wrong, but you can get 1 of this and then you can recur it with the branded counter trap as well. So this card is, I think, fine at 1, reasonable at 2. I think it needs to go down from 3. That's just me personally. And I can see it happening because we have reached that limit now of, like, it's been out for a long time now. I can see it being hit at some point on the list. Next up, we have no honorable mentions on this one because I think it's kind of a lock-in that Cups of Yummy is going to get limited. No one knows for certain, obviously, apart from the people at Konami, but the card is just the most absurd normal summon in the format. It is ridiculous. It feels like... This, to me, feels infinitely better than normal summon Dormouse, which is insane, right? Normal summon Dormouse, we all know that feeling when your opponent, especially when they set 1 normal summon Dormouse, you suddenly just feel gross. You're like, well, this sucks. You're like, Cups of Yummy is this without needing to set 1, because you need, at minimum, 2 hand interactions to stop this if it's just normal summon Cupsy. Absolutely insane card. I don't have any honorable mentions for limit. I think there could be a bunch of things that could be limited. I just think that this is such a shoo-in for the limited card in this list. If they limited this and nothing else, I think it would be a win. They probably are going to limit more things, but yeah, Cupsy is such an insanely powerful card. I could see them doing, like, limiting other Yummy cards as well. I think Marshmallow could, because potentially that's very good, it doesn't spend your normal, so it's a very, very good card. But yeah, I think Cupsy to 1 hits the deck in such a way that it's very good. Another card that I could actually see, I just thought about this, I didn't put this on my honorable mentions for the Forbidden part. I could see Sky Striker Ace, Sky Striker Mecha Hornet Drones, because Sky Striker doesn't use it. And it just means that any 2 generic monsters makes full Yummy combo with the Azalea thing. So I think that Cupsy being hit to 1, and I think Hornet Drones being forbidden. I didn't put that on there, but I think that probably could happen. Some honourable mentions now for the forbidden section. This is maybe a bit of a cheat on this, but I genuinely think it's time for this sort of thing. Something with Maliss. Something has to go with that. I don't know what it is. I know that Shifter is not specifically a Maliss thing, but the strength with Maliss and the continued strength of Maliss, in my opinion, is it obviously, like, it plays very well. It plays through interruptions quite well. You have a lot of engine, a lot of extenders and whatnot that you can use with it. But the thing with it that I think makes it so incredibly strong is the non-engine it's able to run. You're able to run shifter. You're able to run impulse. You can run. You can side in floodgates like dimensional fissure going first rather. You can do so much with your non-engine with this deck, and the reason that's a problem, especially with this deck, because there are other decks that can run the same things, which I don't think are as much of a problem, but I think absolutely in a key way with this deck is the fact that with Chessy Cat and with Allure of Darkness, you draw into it. You draw like 4 or 5 cards on your turn or something like that. You draw a lot of cards in your turn on Maliss. You see your non-engine. When you're playing a lot of non-engine in Maliss, you're going to see a handful of it at the end of your turn. If you're playing Maliss, you are going to end your turn on a respectable field. Now that they've gotten rid of a few bits and bobs, it's not as good as it once was, but a very respectable, still very powerful field, and a handful of non-engine and extenders. That is why it's so powerful. So I think Shifter should go, but that's kind of a shoe-in. Everyone thinks that anyway. And I think just get rid of something with Maliss, because I don't know that it's particularly fair or likely even that something like Dominus Impulse could get hit, because there are some decks that can run that, which is not really that much of an issue in, you know? Like something like Mitsurugi, it's very strong in that, obviously. Anything that can run it should run it because it's very strong, but it's not necessarily like the thing that tips it over the edge. With this deck specifically, the fact that it can draw into so much non-engine when it draws so much during its turn, I think it is an issue in this deck, and therefore this deck needs to be gone, in my opinion. It's a shame as well, because I think the basic gameplay of Maliss, I think, is very cool. I'm not a Maliss hater. I think Maliss is cool, but the fact that it can run such powerful non-engine and is gonna see it because of the amount of time it draws in its turn, it's too strong. It's too good, unfortunately. Still, even to this day. So I think just get rid of something as an honourable mention. But my real prediction when it comes to my Forbidden pick is Ripper. Ripper's too good. Ripper is too good. So I think what we have all sort of agreed upon is that a generic bridge card in and of itself can be considered too strong. The prime example of this was, I think it was last year at this point, not quite last year, maybe, 2025. King of the Fair Lymphs got Forbidden. All that card does is it's a generic rank 4 that searches a reptile monster. And that was enough to put it on the Forbidden list. Moon of the Closed Heaven. 2 generic monsters, effect monsters, that can turn into a Light Fiend. That was enough to put it on the list. Generic bridges, anything like that, is enough to put a card on the list. Now, this is not only a generic bridge, it's also hand interaction negation. It just protects you from almost anything, and you make it with Lupus, you also can't target it. Ripper is such a problem card in my opinion. I can see it going. I think it's at the point now where it's long enough past the date where like Justice Hunter's been a thing. I think, Judge format is coming to a close. I think Ripper's, it's due to go. It's time, you know what I mean? It's time for this card to go. The reason like Herald, for example, got banned is because it is a bridge, and it is a floodgate, and it is a negation. K9, 17, Ripper is a generic bridge. You can think of it as a floodgate. I wouldn't necessarily, but you can think of it as a floodgate. Mainly it's a negation, but it's like, you could argue this is a floodgate against hand traps. That might be a bit over the top, but it is at the very least a negation against something that's going to end your turn. So yeah, I think Ripper is unfortunately just way too strong at the moment, and any card that can do what Ripper can do is too strong. Hence why, again, I think Hornet Drones could go as well, because that can do a lot of stuff, and also it's the generic bridge. So yeah, so that's my prediction, guys. This is my sort of sincere. I think I can see these being, I think this is go from there. There we go. So I think unhit, maybe put it to 1. I think put it to 2, put it to 1 again, and then Forbidden. This is what I think the list could look like. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more than this on the list. I don't see these being the only 4 things on the list. There's going to be more than this on the list. But these are what I think I could sincerely see all of these happening on the list. But that's just my thought process. Please let me know your own thought process in the comments. Let me know if you like the video. Any suggestions, any thoughts, any theories, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, been a pleasure talking to you. I'll see you guys at Nationals. Been a pleasure. See you soon. Take care.